Wait, don't leave. I'm not judging you or telling you to quit alcohol, but I am inviting you to get curious about how alcohol might be influencing your eating, your habits, and your energy. I myself drank from age 18 to age 55. In this episode, I'm celebrating my third year alcohol free, and I'm sharing the biggest lessons I've learned, including the surprising connection between alcohol and emotional eating. I'm sharing 7 questions with you that I wish I knew to ask myself when I was considering letting go of alcohol all those years. If you've ever wondered why you eat differently when you drink and why alcohol affects your motivation, or how to break the cycle of one more drink, one more snack, this episode is definitely for you. There's no judgment. There's no pressure. You don't need to quit drinking right now. But I do want to create some awareness and some curiosity, not getting critical. Before we dive in, do me a favor, subscribe, share this with a friend, and thank you so much for being a part of my Emotional Eats community. I am always grateful to have you here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to episode 98 of the Emotional Eats podcast. I'm Kim, your host. If you have been with me all along, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And if you're new, it's really nice to meet you. This is for women. This is for the women in my life. That would be you. And I wanted to share today about alcohol and emotional eating. But wait, don't leave just yet. I'm not going to tell you to quit alcohol. In fact, I'm not even going to use that term. When I let go of alcohol, I chose the words let go because quitting just goes right back to what do we know? Diet culture, quitting food, quitting bad exercising, quit cardio, lift weights, quit the sugar, eat the protein. There's so much pressure out there to quit something. So letting go means you have a choice. So we're going to talk about alcohol. And the reason why is over the past couple years, in January, have done a podcast episode on my journey with letting go of alcohol. And what's interesting is I let that go this year. We are now in March, and I used to count every day. I used to count every month, and then I counted the years. And now I am past 3 years, and I really don't count anymore because it's my new normal. Again, this is not judgment. This is not for you to be saying, oh my gosh, she's telling me I need to let go of alcohol. This is just a journey and something I'm going to share with you because this is the year, though, that I realized all the things that alcohol had a connection to. And I want to share that with you because then you have an opportunity to think about the connections in your life and you get to make choices, but those choices don't have to be today. So just listen with an open heart. This episode is about curiosity. It's about self-awareness. It's about exploring. It's about understanding your role with alcohol and what it's doing in your life and for you. And you don't have to give it up right away. You can just think about it. You don't ever have to give it up. But I'd love for you to have this information. But if you also feel like you eat emotionally, you overeat, you maybe eat more when you're not hungry than you'd like to, this episode ties into that. So we're going to look at the connection of both, but you will be served today by listening, even if you're not ready to let go of alcohol. I also wanted to mention my emotional eats community, a community of women that is getting together and working on these concepts. We're working on moving forward in health habits. We're moving forward on stopping emotional eating, creating a life where we are taking care of ourselves in midlife, and really wanting that joy and peace with our food and with our bodies. So reach out if you want to know more about this because this is a space for women to really have those conversations with each other and to get some coaching and conversation with me also. So let's go back to January of 2022. I purposely did not want to let go of alcohol. So this is my journey of letting go. I didn't want to let go of alcohol January 1st. I didn't want to do another sober October, dry January, nothing that's related to the diet industry that has time constraints that are outside of what I want to do ever worked for me. Whether it was food, it does not matter. It did not work for me. My particular day, I'm going to tell you why this happened. I had been thinking about it, and the December before, December 2021, I had gone to a work party with my husband. And every year for 11 years leading up to that year, when we went to this party, we were always the ones that had one or two drinks and we knocked out early. We just left, and everybody else went out afterwards. And they would go, we always had a joke because we would have the dinner on property wherever we were staying, and then everyone would go off property afterwards. And so our big joke is we never go off property because that's when things happen. And you just get that, the party gets going. Everybody's having a great time. You don't want it to stop. And alcohol is one of those things that, once you get rolling with it, more feels like better. It feels like the thing to do. So anyway, December 2021 was the first party where we went off property. And what was really interesting is I am not that person that mixes things. I don't necessarily, there's only a couple mixed drinks that I would ever drink. There are, at my age, doing shots is not an option. But what was happening that night was there was also a mixture of things being brought to us. And it's interesting because when you are someplace and you're being treated and things are just showing up, you try a sip here, try a sip there. So we were beyond what we would have normally been. And we made the mistake and we went off property after that. By going off property, we had a great time, don't get me wrong, but luckily we came to our senses at the next place and said, we really need to stop. This is not what we do. And it's not a judgment. It's just that we both know how our bodies would feel, and we know the next day, we know how this is going to turn out. Well, sure enough, the next day, I'm in my face, not feeling good again because of alcohol. And after going through menopause, by the way, perimenopause, leading into postmenopause, I was not at all able to metabolize alcohol well. That happens to so many women. You get into your 40s, your 50s, and alcohol is just really hard on your body. And you start to really notice the difference. So what everybody does, I did it too, was, I'm not going to drink red wine. I went down to white wine. And okay, that felt a little bit better. Well, then I didn't feel good. So then I would have mixed tequila drink or something. And then everybody tries to play that game also. What has more sugar? What doesn't have more sugar? Alcohol is alcohol. And in my body, it's toxic either way because I could tell that even though I don't have a rock bottom story. I don't have a rock bottom story. That party isn't even rock bottom. Everybody had a great time. I had a great time. I just felt terrible the next day. It literally ruined the whole next day for me. But this was happening even with a couple drinks or a glass and a half of wine, where the things I was feeling the next day were anxiety. And also that feeling where I would always say to myself, Kim, you said you weren't going to drink again. And again, it wasn't like I was having a lot of alcohol, but it was a deal that I was breaking with myself every day. These promises that I kept to myself in other areas of my life, I couldn't keep with that particular aspect, the alcohol. I also did not feel super clear. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts when I talk about this, but I could tell in my skin that underneath my eyes was really baggy. My face and my neck were inflamed. I even started near the end of my, when I was getting ready to let go, feeling the achiness in joints. And so that would ruin my workout the next day. And I also, back in the day when I would run a lot more distance, getting through half marathon and marathon training, I knew that my runs in the morning with my group were not as good as the ones when I didn't drink. But it didn't stop me. Didn't stop me from doing that. I also really felt disconnected from myself. I just really felt disconnected. And when I feel disconnected from myself, I don't feel like I'm making good decisions. And I feel kind of lost, and I blame the external world for things. I blame technology if things are going wrong. I blame other people. When I'm disconnected, I'm not in touch with myself. And I felt like for me, alcohol just wasn't serving me. But what I didn't know was the truth of why I was drinking it. I did not know the truth. And the truth was when I can see this now 3 years later, I saw it 2 years later. I would come home from work during that time and I would put my bag down and I would be thinking about having that glass of wine while I was cooking dinner. Sometimes I'd be driving home from work, even though I had switched over to health coaching from teaching. I loved my job. I loved both those jobs. But there was a level of stress that I would even think as I was driving by the grocery store on the way home, should I pop in and make sure I have a bottle of wine? I also found that if there was a bottle of wine open, and we're going to make this connection with food too. If I have a package of chocolate open, how I react to that is I feel like I have to have it just because it's there. Because I didn't have the language back then to talk to myself and to teach my clients how to talk to themselves. I teach language to my clients on how to talk to themselves when there's forbidden food or alcohol or things in the house that you feel like you should not be having. And I don't love that term, but we'll get into that. And the moment I decided, believe it or not, was I was with my mom and my stepdad. I was up visiting them in North Carolina. And I remember while I was there, something really powerful. When I sat with my stepdad, my mom quit drinking years ago. She had a very similar experience, not surprising. We're the same DNA, but also a lot of women go through it, especially in their menopausal years. My mom gave it up, and Chuck and I would have a glass of wine at dinner. But what was really nice is with my stepdad, we savored it. We drank it slowly. We each had one glass. And I knew when I left there, if I could do that, then I could give it up. But I'd never really experimented with savoring it, sitting down and slowly having it. So let's pause on that for a second. If you choose to keep drinking, that is your challenge, is to savor it, use it for what it the enjoyment, just like food. My clients and I talk about this all the time. When you sit and savor something, it's very different than mindlessly using it to soothe yourself or comfort yourself. And when I was sitting with my stepdad and my mom at dinner, I was savoring this glass of wine, enjoying the company and the conversation. Whereas when I was drinking before, I was probably gulping a little bit, just like I've done with food. I used to be such a fast eater. Definitely contributed to my overeating and my emotional eating. But I'd be cooking dinner. I'd be doing other things. I wouldn't really be paying attention, or we'd be sitting in front of some kind of show, binge watching a show that might have a lot of stimulation that again takes me away from knowing what I'm doing with the alcohol. Now, just know when I quit, I didn't expect anyone around me to quit. So my husband, Mike, has not quit drinking alcohol, but Mike has a different brain, even with food. Mike has a different on-off button that I do not have. So if you're an emotional eater, you're struggling to let go of alcohol, you are an all or nothing person, then you might be more like me. And my husband, Mike, can really have one or have two and just be done, or not have it for 2 weeks and be done, or not have it for 3 days, or not have it in the house, or have it in the house and not have to drink it. So everyone's different. And I want you to recognize that when you look around you, if you ever choose to let go, that know that we are not in charge of other people. We have to take care of our own journey. However, what that does, though, is it really puts us in a situation where we have to, even with our health journey, even with our food journey, we have to stay in our own lane, and we have to work hard to do the things that are going to help us. Because as you know, watching someone else eat chocolate, if you're trying to give up chocolate, or watching someone else drink a beer while you're trying to give up alcohol is challenging. And I would hear the psh on the beer can, and I would immediately think of happy hour, right? So I did try all the substitutes. Let's start there. I started with the Guysen white wine that was de-alcoholized. And it was good at first, but it's a lot of sugar. And I realized that when I tried that and some of the non alcoholic beers, there's a couple really good ones that are coming out. But I did Athletic Brewing, and Sierra Nevada had a non alcohol. Some of the IPAs are fantastic. However, alcohol wasn't because of the taste that I loved it. The alcohol was serving a purpose to bring me down, to take the edge off. So with the substitutes, I felt like I was just adding something into my belly that wasn't really doing what I needed. So after about a year of that, I probably could have done it sooner. I let go. And it's funny because now I even went to things like kombucha. I went to some of the sparkling waters. I tried a lot of different things, but now I can sometimes just have a cup of tea or a glass of water because I'm not serving the same purpose. I bring down my stress in other ways. And that was what I needed to learn was why was I attached to it? Why could I not let go? So before we move on to the link between alcohol and emotional eating, I do want to share that socializing got easier and easier. The first few times I went out, it was a little bit challenging. But what was challenging was not necessarily not drinking the alcohol, but the comments that people felt like making. You know, if I did have a mocktail, there's a place in town that has beautiful mocktails, and I will have one every time I go there because they're beautiful, they're tasty. I know they have sugar in them, but that's what I do. And people will say, "Are you sure you don't want a real drink?" They would call it a real drink. And the other thing they would do is say, "Oh, that would probably be really good with tequila in it or vodka in it." It's just interesting. And I don't have any judgment. I certainly don't get offended by what people say because I've been on that end of things. But now I don't think about it. Here is the huge piece I want to leave with you on my experience. Once I said no, and I realized I didn't even know this was going to be forever. I just counted days. Then on principle, I wanted to do months. Then on principle, I wanted to do years. There was a certain point where I realized that I will never drink alcohol again. But I am going to tell you never say never because you get that choice. And when you don't let yourself get pigeonholed into one thing and you know you have the power and the freedom, it just takes the pressure away. But no is no for me. So when I go out, it's not the decision I used to have to make before or the decision at home. Am I going to have one drink? Am I have two drinks? Oh, I'm driving, so I can't have two drinks. I am only going to have one at home. The bottle's open and there's only a half a glass. I'll have more. There's no decision making. For me, it's a no. So when I go out, I can just not even think about it. And everyone around me knows that I don't drink also. And I can drive anytime, which is really, that's a double-sided thing. It is a blessing because I can always drive and I never feel insecure or worried or scared about how much is in my system. On the other side, you're always a designated driver, but you are getting everybody home safe. So there really is no downside to that. Except if you are like me at 58 years old, driving at night's not so fun anymore. Driving at night is a little bit harder. So you'll have to let me know what you think about that. But those are the things that I went through as far as letting go of alcohol. But let's talk about this is really the important part of this particular episode. You can go back and listen to my other two episodes. One of those episodes I'd love for you to hear is with my friend, Katie Campbell. She's a sober curious coach. And I have to give Katie so much credit because I do believe that meeting her a long time ago, before we even podcasted together on her podcast, The Mindful Constitution, and on my podcast, Emotional Eats, we connected, and everything that she shared about becoming sober curious made me really explore because she was so compassionate and loving and non-judgmental. She just was sharing her experience with it and sharing experience of people that she'd been working with. And it just really opened my eyes to what was possible without shaming myself if I couldn't do it completely and had to keep coming back and starting over. This must have been the right time for me because it's a done deal. As far as I know, I'm not going back. So the link between alcohol and emotional eating, let's talk about this because mostly I talk about emotional eating, but I, in this year, have learned that when we have lowered inhibitions, our choices change. So when I would be drinking alcohol at night, I would actually have two helpings of a meal. What's really interesting is you can have two helpings of a meal, by the way. You have permission to eat, you have permission to do whatever you want. But what I do know is I would be stuffed. So I will have had alcohol, and then I would have my first helping, and sometimes I would go back for seconds because I also, when I first started looking at this situation with alcohol, there were still kids at home eating, and sometimes if you thought you wanted more, you had to get up and get it. But then again, that was also around my emotional eating issues. So when I was drinking, though, I didn't have the wherewithal to stop and see if I was full. I didn't feel full. So, whatever's going on with my leptin, my satisfaction satiety hormone, there wasn't anything going on because my brain had disconnected. My brain had completely disconnected also from ghrelin, the hunger side of it. I just was eating because I was not connected to my body at all. And now I'll eat one helping and I will eat it slowly because if you've been listening, you know that's one of the things we talk about with emotional eating is slowing down, enjoying it. And I actually feel like when I'm done, I can just get up, put my plate in the dishwasher and not feel like I'm missing out. You know, I used to have that scarcity, like especially when I was drinking, better get another helping or I want more carbs. That was something interesting. And I have nothing against carbs, by the way. But I found when I was drinking, that was the thing that I always went back for, the rice, the potatoes. There was something about that that was so alluring to me. And it reminds me of being in other situations where I drank, and the types of food that I would choose were not broccoli and a nice lean protein. So my food choices were not good, but that's one of the links. So keep that in mind if you are thinking about letting go of alcohol and you already know you have issues with emotional eating. Those two could be very connected, and that might help you in one way. So here's the thing that I also think is really connected. The one more drink and the one more snack, or why not just eat what I want? This all or nothing mentality is really challenging. They are very connected. So when I would have a glass of wine, it always turned into two. If I was going to have 10 chips, it always turned into 30. If I was going to have a cookie, it always turned into 10. So there is a connection. If you feel like you do this with alcohol, having another one is always feeling better. And again, every brain is different. My husband, he can have one, he can have zero, he can have two, he can have no alcohol in the house, he can have alcohol in the house and not touch it. We all have different brains, but women, a lot of women, we have been brought up with all or nothing diet mentality. And so sometimes that floats into other areas of our lives. And I just want to bring that to your attention so you can explore it. Remember, this episode is not about you shaming yourself. Please don't do that. That's not what we're here for. We are here to get curious and explore if alcohol and emotional eating are things that you can move forward in to feel healthier and feel better and to feel like you have more agency over your body, having that peace and feeling a little more in control. So the other thing that I felt like this was really big, I felt like there was a ripple effect of alcohol on my habits. So if I would wake up inflamed, if I woke up sluggish, if I woke up anxious, ding, 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 all three, I could check the box on all three. I had a really hard time having a good workout or having a lot of motivation to do something for very long or to try something new or to meet up with someone and do a run or a walk or a workout. So I think that ripple effect is there. I also think that I didn't have a fantastic connection with my body the next day. So I remember there was a time when Mike and I were at our cabin in Colorado and we were with family, and at night everyone was having alcohol. And before I tried all those things, you know, dropping from red wine to white wine to tequila, you know, you try all of it before you let go, thinking, oh, I'll have less sugar. This will feel better in my body. Well, at that time I was drinking red wine. Then and going through perimenopause. So let's just double down on everything and not eating so well on this vacation. The next day when we were hiking, I did not feel very good. And we take hiking kind of like to a new level for us. We like to go out. We go down the long ones. We want to get it all in while we're there. Coming down from the mountain, I think we had gone up probably 5 miles or so. Coming down, I fell like a really good hard fall. Did not catch myself in any way. Scraped myself. My hands were all scraped, bleeding. So I was like, okay, I can do this. You would think going down is easier, right? So I go down and no joke, half an hour later, I fall again. This time it rips my pants. I got blood on my knees. So this was happening throughout the going down. I kept catching the wrong rock. I wasn't really paying attention. I was getting tired. But I also know my body was not in top form. And so that's a perfect example where I think that the drinking the night before did not help me with that. Some people skip workouts. I have clients in the community who are saying, hey, I'm skipping workouts and I don't want to. And I know that if I was making different choices, I might not do that. Because a lot of people are telling me, hey, I'm really enjoying working out in the morning, getting it done. And if I skip it, I don't have the energy at the end of the day. So I also, and I have a couple clients who've said they do the same thing. I also was drinking a lot more coffee to keep things rolling throughout the day. And I was drinking coffee too late because it was affecting my sleep, which perimenopause was too. So all of this really happened perimenopause moving into postmenopause. I used food a lot more as comfort because even though I would eat more at night because of the alcohol, even the next day, I was not feeling great. And what do we do when we feel sad, sluggish, tired? We reach for the food, and that's comforting and soothing. And if you're already having more stress because of the anxiety of alcohol, which I did, again, this is my story and my clients' stories. You may be fine, but just soak it all in case you ever need this information. But using food, I was really not listening to my body's needs and what I needed, like a nap, de stressing, a walk, sleep, self care, and just a clean body. I just would go and grab all the things that would make me feel even more inflamed, the coffee, the sugar. So we talk about triggers a lot. And for some women, alcohol is a trigger. And my clients and the community, we're talking about that because even if you're not drinking excessively, we are understanding more and more what alcohol might be doing in the body. And again, I'll let you do more of the physiological research on this to find out from experts what alcohol is actually doing to your brain, to your gut, to your systems, to your hormones. I'll put that on you because I'm not a medical expert, but I do know what I know, and it's kind of alarming to me. So I also want to talk about there are so many women that say to me, I just can't give this up. So if you're not ready, you're not ready. And that is okay. You have permission to do this when you are ready to do this. And if there's nothing major, and what I mean is bigger, 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 disease, worried about driving, some of these things that we, don't want to happen to you. If you're not in that space and it's just a glass or two at home, but you're thinking about it, that's what you get to do because the most powerful choices are when you get to make them for yourself. The most powerful choices that you can make for your health and your body are the ones that you make for yourself, and not because of weight loss and not because you have to have the perfect body, but because you know that you will feel better, you will feel more connected, you will have peace with food, your body, alcohol, and you will have more joy. So the other thing that I noticed, we're talking about this ripple down effect of alcohol and the aftermath it's having on my habits during this time. I felt like emotional eating was a response to the alcohol's impact, but alcohol was a response to me not taking care of myself. I was very stressed. There are a lot of things that I've not healed in my life that I really have needed to work through. And when I started working on some of those, and I also started getting more connected spiritually, and I also started reducing my stress better, and I added self care, things started to go in a direction where I felt like alcohol was not as necessary, because alcohol for me, it numbed feelings in the moment, but boy, does it heighten them later. Alcohol helped me escape in the moment, but it always got bigger later, the feelings that I was having. I feel like drinking made it really hard for me to process emotions when I needed to at that moment. And then I would also turn to food. So I was doubling down. Alcohol and then the food, I was doubling down on numbing out and escaping. And then I probably was tripling down by watching a bunch of Netflix. So the cycle of guilt and regret, why did I eat that? Why did I drink that? I said I would stop drinking. I said I would stop eating sugar. I'll be better tomorrow. I'll start on Monday. That's where that cycle starts. And I've been through it. And I've shared with those of you who've been with me for a long time, you know, I dieted on and off for 25 plus years. This is why I love helping everyone get away and get out of that cycle, because dieting is such that the whole diet culture of what you need to look like, what you need to eat, how many calories, what kind of exercise you're supposed to do. Even though there's a lot of great information, we want to do the things to help us stay strong, feel really good in our bodies, and have some wonderful lifespan and longevity. We also have been put in this box of things that are socially acceptable, of how we look, feel, what we do. And you're a failure if you don't just, you know, cut out all the processed food and the sugar. You're a failure if you don't cut out all the alcohol. But that's not really the case. If you can find more balance, that's great. I could not do balance. I had to let go. Now, can I find balance with sugar? Yeah, heck yeah, because peanut butter cups are not leaving my life. Do I still overindulge sometimes? Yes. But do I have a better balance? Yes. And I don't think balance is a great word. I think nothing is ever evenly balanced. It's balanced to the best of my ability any given day. So I feel like that cycle of shame and regret makes things worse. So don't shame yourself into doing something. Explore, decide, make a decision when you're ready, and know that you can change at any given time. And you can start over any given time. It doesn't have to be the first of a month, sober October, dry January. It doesn't have to be like that. I gave up. My first sober day was January 24th, 2022. The 24th, it meant nothing. It meant nothing to anybody in the world but me. I happen to love that date, and it means nothing to anybody else. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. But that date meant nothing to me. And alcohol and eating, let's just be real, they're coping mechanisms. They help us soothe, they help us feel good, and help us not have to think about something. And when I would come home from work, I could let go of my day. What a terrible transition, but it was a transition. We'll call it for what it is. It was a transition from my work day to my home life. Now, of course, sometimes I'd go walk or walk the dog. I wouldn't have a glass of wine, in my car on the way into the house, but it felt like it some days, but it still was my transition. So now I actually have to be very careful with my transition, because I can go into the house and bring my whole work life with me. I love work. I could work all day, every day. But it's unfortunate that I have that mentality, because I do need to have downtime. And this is what I teach everyone. This is what the community is about, reminding you have to fit in things throughout the day to bring yourself down, have mini breaks, to reduce the stress, to sit in your emotions, so that you're not leaning on things, destructive habits that may not be feeling good in your body. And that's your choice, right? So let's take this self-compassionate. Let's look at ourselves right now and say, you know what? I'm just going to be compassionate. I'm going to love on myself, and I'm going to take a very open-minded and open-hearted approach to exploring alcohol's role. So this is what I'd love to share with you. This is where I'm going with this. This is not to tell you these are the things to do to let go of alcohol. I'm not telling you how to let go of alcohol, just like I never tell you to stop eating. I never tell you to stop eating processed food and sugar, to diet. This is your choice, what you like to incorporate into your life. But we do know the reason why we do those things is to cope. So here's a compassionate way for you to explore what you might want to do with this. So let's say you've already let go of drinking and alcohol. Let's say there are other areas in your life, and you can figure out by using these questions what the role of that thing that you're hanging on to. Maybe it's what you would consider a bad habit. I don't like using good or bad. It's just not serving you. But here's some questions. I want you to reflect on these non-judgmental questions. I care about you and I don't want you to judge yourself. So, how does alcohol make me feel physically, emotionally, and mentally? Really evaluate and be honest with yourself. If you're ready, be honest. Maybe even write it down in your journal. Emotionally, and just list the words. So for me, physically, I gave you all the physical feelings. I was inflamed. I was puffy faced. I wasn't feeling good in my workouts. My joints hurt. Just did not feel good physically. I was a little on edge, anxious, never feeling really good about myself. My self esteem was a little bit lower. And mentally, I know that mental health wise, we'll go back to the anxious thoughts. I know that I created really bad chatter in my head. You know that loop where you're saying something to yourself and it's negative and you can't get out of it? I found that rumination to happen a lot more. So that's your first question. So hopefully you will go back and you will write these down if you don't have pen and paper with you. How does alcohol make me feel physically, emotionally, and mentally? Do I notice patterns with my eating when I drink? So, do you notice patterns with your eating? So, I think I have 7 items. This is number 2. And the reason why I put this right at number 2 is I think that everyone has a tendency to do things differently with their food. And believe it or not, some people don't eat at all. They like their alcohol and they don't want to have food, which is also not helping the body. And if you want, you can go explore physiologically the metabolism of how alcohol gets metabolized and then food. That's really interesting. And we'll get an expert on here to talk about that, because I think physiologically it would be really fascinating for you to understand how that's getting metabolized in your body. But do I have these patterns? And like I shared, I definitely ate more. I also always wanted dessert when I was drinking my wine. So you're not alone if you feel that way. So number 3 is, am I using alcohol to escape discomfort or to enhance joy? Hey, you may be totally different than me. You might be able to have a glass of wine because it's joyful and it's fun, and you can have a glass of wine and that just makes everything even better. If that's you, that's great. That was not me. Alcohol was not making my life more joyful. So that's a question for you, but it's non-judgmental. Number 4 is, does alcohol support or hinder my health and wellness goals? And that's what I was talking about. I feel like there's a ripple down effect for some people, my clients, some people in the community, and me, where we have a connection to our health and wellness goals through the other things that we do, emotional eating and having alcohol. And number 5 is, if I removed alcohol for a period of time, what might change for me? So if you got alcohol out of your system, and it takes a little while, it takes, I think, between a week and 2 weeks for it's actually really to be out of your system. So what's really interesting about that, I just want to make a side note. What's interesting about that is, if we are not really getting alcohol out of ourselves for almost 2 weeks, that means we still have it in us, and maybe it's more of a withdrawal. And I can't say that scientifically, but that's just a Kim thought. If I remove alcohol for a period of time, what might change for me? So here's what I'd like you to look at too. Is alcohol impacting my relationship with my body? Is alcohol impacting my relationship with food, or with me getting self-care? And you can bring that up a notch. Is alcohol affecting my relationship with other people? I mostly focus on you taking care of you and you being the best person you can be. But is this affecting your relationship with others? Do you find that your communication is different? Do you find that you're more isolated from others? Do you find that you don't communicate well, and things happen in conversations. But I want you to look at you first, your body, food, and your self-care. Are you taking care of yourself? Is alcohol affecting you not doing that? The last question, again, these are all non-judgmental. This is not saying you have to do anything. These 7 questions are here for you to just explore. Be curious. Curious, not critical. Is alcohol holding me back from something I truly want? Number 7 is the big one. This is the big one. Is alcohol holding me back from something I really want? And I felt like for me, it really was holding me back from having the purest joy that I could have. It does not matter if I ever lose a pound. It does not matter if, something else happens in my life. Obviously, I don't want any of my relationships to go away. I want my husband and family to be all good. But what it was taking away was me truly being able to enjoy each moment in life and have true joy. What I think is one of the most powerful things in life is when you are clear headed enough to be able to see the smallest things in your day and find them to be so joyful. Right now I'm talking to you, and this is one of the biggest joys I have, is sharing with you and interacting with you when you tell me your stories. I can look outside right now and see the wind blowing. I can see green trees. I can see sunshine. Those are little God winks that I am enjoying. When I am numbed by alcohol, or I have the after effect the next day, my body is still numb in some ways, I don't experience the small little joys. I just shared on Instagram today, I was sitting in a coffee shop first thing this morning doing some work, and a woman sat next to me. And we started having a pretty deep conversation about relationships and women. I don't know in my previous life if I would have felt really comfortable having that and just being open, having a conversation. And that we developed a relationship in 8 minutes, and then she had to go and she doesn't live here. But I do know that if I wasn't feeling 100%, would I make the effort to reach out? Would I be feeling the brightness that I feel in my body now? So your biggest question out of all those is alcohol holding me back from something I truly want? So this isn't about deciding today. You don't have to do this today. This is about making a change when you're ready, if you want to. It's just about noticing. And I love guiding women through this process of the food, the alcohol, getting some more movement. We don't focus on restriction because restriction does not lead anywhere. I can tell you 25 years experience of that. Restriction doesn't help. We focus on awareness. And once you're aware, you can't unknow what you know. And I love that about life. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. It will always be with you. Then you get to make choices off of it. And it's not about giving things up just for the sake of it. It's understanding why you want to do it. So when you go through those questions that I gave you, the 7 questions, you will see very clearly what you want to do. But please remember, you still don't have to do it today. You can do it whenever you're ready. So here's some things that I've learned in the last 3 years. I've gained a lot of clarity, and I feel like I can feel my emotions more. But in addition to feeling my emotions, I've learned so many tools, and I teach these to you. I teach them to my clients with the breathing meditation. Tapping is my most powerful one. Tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique, is so powerful. If you're watching the video, tapping is where we're using these acupressure points and we're talking through those emotions, and it's amazing. Some of my clients have gotten some really wonderful experiences out of that, and they use it on their own now. It's very easy to learn. I feel like I've learned the last 3 years, even though this is something I've been working on for 10 years with clients, that freedom from guilt around making choices around food, alcohol. I am free. I can do whatever I want, and I can make those choices. And when I do, the rule is just to enjoy them. There won't be any of those choices with alcohol for me, but with food, if I'm going to choose to have something that someone else maybe not considering a nourishing type of food, let's say my peanut butter cups, because those are my favorite. If I'm going to have that, now I can sit and enjoy them and know not to dig into the bag when I'm feeling stressed, when I feel like there's some big emotions, when I'm thinking about the past. We know that we all ruminate on the past and we can't change it, but that's when we do some of the worst damage with emotional eating. We think about what people have said to us. We let others really affect us, other people's opinions. So I've learned that when I eat, I really am careful as to, and I make mistakes, by the way, even as a health coach. I am careful, though, as much as possible to think about what I truly need in that moment. And that takes practice. And that's what we're all working on. And I think I've also learned that I've got a better connection with my body. I have better energy, better workouts. And even when I'm really tired, I have better connection with my body to say, you need to take a rest day and just walk a little bit. I just powered through. I was kind of numb to everything. And I was doing workouts that were ridiculous, especially in perimenopause. But we now know that those are not the way to go. I have more emotional resilience. I think perimenopause puts you in a very rough state anyway. We have a lot of anxious thoughts. We're irritable. We have a lot of things that happen due to that estrogen and progesterone dropping. We know that. We know the science behind that now. And if you listen to any of the menopause episodes throughout the Emotional Needs podcast, you will hear all the reasons why this is happening. But when we double down with food, when we double down with alcohol, it's really hard to even create emotional resilience because you're just numbing it and putting a band-aid on it. When you have to sit in the emotions without those things, you learn your techniques and you learn that emotions rise. We don't always have control. The emotions rise up and sometimes they're really, really big, but those emotions will come back down. And for me, I'm not like some people where I can just sit and let them rise and everything's okay, let them come down. I do have to work through them through walking or tapping. I know myself well. I can't just sit and I would love to be super reasonable and I teach other people to think about that, but it's hard for everyone. We have a lot of emotions, but we also are in a society of pushing it down. Go, go, go. Suck it up, buttercup. You can handle it. Just keep going. Push on. We have this societal view that we just need to push through it. And really what we need to do is process it. Because some of us have a past. I've got stuff in my past. Still got probably many traumas to process through that I'm still working on. And that is what I think also contributed to eating and drinking. And I feel like myself more. I've learned in the last 3 years that I feel like myself more. I have a deeper understanding of myself without the alcohol. I see myself a little more clearly, and I am working through being able to share that with you and be really authentic with the things that I've gone through. Because one of the things that happened during this situation with alcohol is I got divorced. I don't think I was a big drinker before that. Of course, we all had our college days and things like that. But one of the things I realized when I was alone again, especially on the weeks when my kids would go back to their dads, they went back and forth between the two homes. I was really alone, and food and a glass of wine often became my friend at the time. And again, I never hit rock bottom. I never had more than 2 glasses, but it still is interesting to see that was an automatic when nobody was around. It's like the secret eating that I've talked about before. And you can go back to that episode, the secret eating. There's secret drinking too, even if it's not a lot. When we drink alone, sometimes it's not just for enjoyment and adding joy to life, it's because we are alone. So I find that really interesting. I feel more like myself now and I can be by myself, and I love being alone sometimes. Love my husband. I could be with him 24/7 in many cases, but now I really can be alone and honor that time that I have. And this is the tie into the coaching part of it too. I created the Emotional Eats community because as women, we don't really have an outlet to be super honest about this. I hope you have that good friend that you're sharing everything with, that is just, that good friend that's so non-judgmental. You can tell them like the weirdest thing and they're like, oh, I totally get it. That's what we want in the emotional eats community, is for everyone to feel connected and that everything can be thrown out there. And, I can share some of my worst emotional eating moments. And then I can tie it back and everyone can help each other in the community. Women are helping each other connect the dots as to why that's happening. Because again, you can't change without awareness. And if you do, that means you're really kind of like on a diet, or you're quitting for the wrong reasons. Because obviously, if we have to quit for health reasons, we have to let go for health reasons. That is understandable. That is a cut and dry situation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those of you who are just exploring right now. But the journey is really easier when you're in some place like Emotional Needs Community, because it's a really safe place for you to explore everything. There's zero judgment in there. So I want to acknowledge, as we close this out, that everyone's journey is different. You may be very different from me, but that's okay. Your story and your journey is still very, very valuable and valid. And if you want to explore your relationship and those questions with alcohol, it's a very personal choice. You decide. It's completely up to you what you do with this information. I'm not telling you quit now. I'm telling you get curious. And I also want you to do this with love, self-compassion, curiosity, no pressure, guilt, and definitely please don't compare yourself to other people. We are all in a different chapter of this book. I might be in chapter 8. You might be in chapter 2. You might even be ahead of me. Maybe you've been sober 10 years instead of 3. Maybe you've never liked drinking. I would have loved that. There's people I run into, and I'm so excited for them that they've never even wanted to really explore it. That is not me. Or people who say, I don't really like chocolate. If you don't like chocolate, I still love you, but I don't get it. I really don't get it. I would love for you to table the thought if you're not ready. Come back to this episode when you are. Just let it go. Let the thought go. Come back when you're ready. No pressure. So here's what I'd love for you to do. If this episode resonated with you and you want a really safe, supportive environment, please click on the link to join the Emotional Eats community. Or reach out to me if you have any questions about it. You can DM me on Instagram at Kim Hines Help. And I would love to talk to you more about this, because having women banding together is the best. I also would love for you to subscribe, download, and share. When you download the episodes, it really helps. And we are coming up on 100 episodes. And I would love to really celebrate by just inviting more and more people into this community, because we are going through this together. When I am talking to you, I am thinking about every woman that I know and really feeling that we have a bond because we share so many experiences. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you. So please share, subscribe, reach out. And no matter where you are today, you're exactly where you need to be. So if this is not the right time or it is the right time, you are exactly where you need to be today. And keep being kind to yourself. Just be aware and know that I'm here to help. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Reach out, have a conversation with me. I want to get to know you better. Thank you for listening. Wait, don't leave. I'm not judging you or telling you to quit alcohol, but I am inviting you to get curious about how alcohol might be influencing your eating, your habits, and your energy. I myself drank from age 18 to age 55. In this episode, I'm celebrating my 3rd year alcohol-free, and I'm sharing the biggest lessons I've learned, including the surprising connection between alcohol and emotional eating. I'm sharing 7 questions with you that I wish I knew to ask myself when I was considering letting go of alcohol all those years. If you've ever wondered why you eat differently when you drink and why alcohol affects your motivation, or how to break the cycle of one more drink, one more snack, this episode is definitely for you. There's no judgment, there's no pressure. You don't need to quit drinking right now, but I do want to create some awareness and some curiosity, not getting critical. Before we dive in, do me a favor, subscribe, share this with a friend, and thank you so much for being a part of my Emotional Eats community. I am always grateful to have you here, and I hope you enjoy the show.